Hello, welcome to Commissioner's Corner. I'm Commissioner Charlotte Garrido, and I'm so pleased you could join us today. We're going to talk about a fairly serious topic here in Kitsap County, that of homelessness. Our recent economic climate has challenged our housing situation and introduced people who never thought that they would see themselves without a home to that condition. I've been interested in housing and homelessness for many years and have been involved most recently in a wonderful group called with the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council called the Homeless Housing Funding Group. And we have been working with other organizations to look at solutions in Kitsap County. So today we'll talk about the problem of homelessness, and we're also going to talk about some innovations that have been occurring most recently that are fairly exciting. With us today are Jim Stowers, the Housing and Homeless Services Manager for Kitsap Community Resources, and Monica Bernard, who has the title of Manager of Housing Solutions Center.
That's correct.
So let's get started. Jim, can you tell us a little bit about the how significant the issue of homelessness is in Kitsap County?
Sure. Homelessness is a number that's difficult to measure, but we do know that there are over 2,500 individuals receiving food stamps that currently claim that they are homeless with DSHS. In addition, the local school districts tell us that there are over 800 children in our schools that represent themselves as homeless. So we know that it's a significant issue in our county.
800 children.
That's correct.
2,400 others identifying, at least.
Yes.
That's pretty significant all by itself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So why is it difficult for people to obtain and keep housing?
Well, there's a number of reasons why people become homeless. One of the reasons are economic. Either they lose their job or they're having a difficult time gaining employment. Maybe they've been on unemployment for a while and their unemployment runs out. So now they'll lack sufficient income to pay for a home. Another reason is they may have personal credit issues. So at some point in time they've had difficulty with credit, and that's still reflected on their credit report, and it's making it difficult to them to find someone willing to rent to them. Also, they may have had evictions in the past, so if they on their credit report the evictions show up, sometimes landlords are hesitant to rent to them and taking a risk on that, so that can cause homelessness. Many people have medical and physical health issues that cause them to it makes it difficult for them to get employment or sufficient employment that they can afford an apartment. Two-bedroom apartment, the fair market rent for a two-bedroom apartment in Kitsap County is over $900 a month. So you have to have a significant income to afford a rental unit. There's other issues such as criminal issues or current family issues that make it difficult for folks to get into a home. So that's why we're there to try to help them when we can.
So an average rent of $900 a month means you need a pretty significant income to be able to manage 25 to 30% of your salary going to a $900 rent.
That's correct. It makes it awfully difficult sometimes.
Wow. So you're saying that it's economics as well as sometimes just the skills to be able to manage all of the challenges that are coming forward.
Right, right. And we try lots of times by helping folks with in areas like budgeting and finances and something like that, we can help them to do a better job of making their income help their income cover all their costs. But sometimes there's just not enough there to meet all the demands of their family.
If you don't have enough, you can't manage it.
Right.
Exactly.
Makes it difficult.
You can't stretch it.
Yeah,
sure.
right.
Correct.
So what are some examples of programs in the community to address homelessness?
Okay. Well, there are a number of shelter providers in our community. Kitsap Community Resources chiefly offers shelter for families with children. We also have the St. Vincent de Paul shelter for women and women with children. There's the Benedict House for single men. There's the YWCA shelter that's available for women victims of domestic violence. And there's George's House that provides shelter, and recently Kitsap Rescue Mission has started opening another shelter for men. George's House is for women and women with children, I'm sorry. And so there are a number of shelters available in our community to try to help folks find a place where they can have a warm, safe environment to move forward in. KCR has several programs. First of all, we have eviction prevention. We think it would be best if we can help a family before they lose their housing. So we have a program if folks are doing just fine month to month, they're meeting their financial needs, and then something happens. If the car breaks down or they have an unexpected medical bill or something happens that's going to cause them to miss their apartment payment, then we offer financial assistance on a one-time basis to try to help them get over that hurdle and be able to sustain their rental unit. We have a rapid rehousing program which is designed to help families who are literally homeless get into a place of their own in the community where we help with the deposit and first month's rent. And that program, as well as all of our other programs, are case managed so that for 90 days we stay with that family, we help them financially, and then we stay with them and work on areas like budgeting, make sure that all their other needs are met and that they're successful so that when we step away that they can sustain that rental. We also have an emergency shelter that's up to 90 days. It's a case managed program. We have transitional and permanent supportive housing. The transitional housing is designed to be for up to 2 years. In transitional housing, a family pays 30% of their net income toward the rent. In permanent supportive housing, it has a similar payment. We work in partnership with Bremerton Housing Authority on that one. We also have other programs to help families that are homeless or about to become homeless. We have homeless child care available for families, and we have a safe park actually for families that are living in their vehicle. And so there are a number of programs all designed to help families who are homeless.
So you've talked about a lot of different housing programs. I worked for the YWCA for a while, so I understand about some of their transitional shelters. But I wonder, given how many units are available, is the demand being met?
Well, we're trying. Or there is a larger demand, so there are typically waiting lists for folks to get into the shelters. And part of the Housing Solutions Center is helping to direct all the families and individuals who need housing, direct them toward the right resource. So we think it's going to help us make the most effective use of the resources we have. So if, for example, we think that rapid rehousing is the most appropriate avenue to take for a family, we would try to help them take that route rather than go into shelter. So what we're trying to do is make the best use of every resource that we have so that families can ultimately be successful.
Well, I agree with that and know that, but I just want to be a little clearer about exactly what's happening. I heard you talk about case management,
right,
and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more, but because Kitsap County has partnered with Kitsap Community Resources in the past, just in the last 2 or 3 years, to create a partnership, a transitional shelter for women and children who need emergency housing and transition them back into self-sufficiency. We've partnered with Kitsap Community Resources and One Church, One Family with a unit that the county happens to own. And that's been a very successful opportunity. And so do you want to tell us a little bit more about how you begin to transition that case management?
Well, the case management, we have a family development survey that we use for everyone who works in our programs, and that's kind of the key for the case manager to get to know the family a little bit, understand what their barriers are, so what caused them to be homeless and what might be holding them back from being successful. So they'll do this, one of the first things they'll do when they meet a family is go over the family development survey. And they're looking at areas like their income, their education, their current housing situation, their credit issues and child care issues, all the things that might be issues that are keeping them from being successful. And then they'll start addressing each of those issues with weekly case management visits and goal sheets each week. So the goal is, for example, if we're in a 90-day program, the goal is if a family's in crisis, they have nowhere to stay tonight, that by the end of that 90 days, they're thriving, they're able to rent their own house, and it's affordable, and the children are doing well, and it's a successful situation. So that's what we try to achieve.
Great. Well, let's give Monica a chance to
Sure.
talk too. Monica, you have a wonderful new challenge,
Absolutely.
the Housing Solutions Center.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about how that's set up?
Yes, absolutely. Well, we opened our doors on February 1st. It was new to Kitsap County. It's considered a direction of best practice, what's happening across the country, actually. But we're one of the first counties in the state to actually be taking this direction of coordinated entry, which I can explain a little bit more. But the idea is that when you're homeless, you can access services all across. You need services or access to services all across the county. So in the past, people have been going from shelter to shelter to shelter looking for services, or coming to KCR, or going to this other place looking for rental assistance. Now we have one place for people to come to, one place for access to services. But because we're such a geographically diverse county, we didn't want to set it up where people in Kingston had to come down to Bremerton, or people in the south ends of the county had to come into Bremerton. So we actually have somewhat of a decentralized model. We have a main center in Bremerton where they can get access to all housing and homeless related services. Or North Kitsap Fish Line is our partner up in the north end to help the citizens up there. And South Kitsap branch of Kitsap Community Resources helps the folks in the south end. And then we also have Coffee Oasis, which helps the folks who are kind of in the youth demographic, who sometimes are a little bit more hesitant to come to the main agencies. So that's kind of how we're set up across the county right now.
So how did that happen? That
Yeah.
KCR happens to be in the center of it, but how did it get set up?
Yeah, this is actually the continuum of care, the Kitsap County continuum of care. This is something they've been working on since about 2008.
And who are they?
And the continuum of care, thank you, is a coalition of all the local agencies that work on housing and homeless services. So there's something in the neighborhood of like 25 different agencies. Any agency is welcome to participate. And I think they've realized that there was an issue, several years ago, and they knew that it wasn't the most efficient model. So how can we change this? They encouraged the Kitsap Regional Coordinating Council to engage a consultant who did a thorough review of all the services. This was back in 2010, looked at all the services that for homeless folks that are homeless today, and what were our strengths, but also what could we do better? And they made a recommendation that we move to the direction of coordinated entry, which is instead of folks going to all these different places, maybe getting on a waiting list here, maybe getting services there, calling all around, many of them with children in tow, let's give them one place that has access to all the services across the county in a coordinated fashion. It's more efficient for the client, and it's more efficient use of our community resources as well. So, several agencies, probably about 10 different agencies from the continuum of care, worked together to design this model. And it went to the Regional Coordinating Council, and they put out a request for proposal last year. And I started work with KCR. KCR applied and was accepted, and I started with them in December, and we opened our doors February 1st. So,
February 1st.
Yeah.
So you've been in existence for a couple of months now?
Yes.
Has there been any success?
It's been, I think nobody really knew what to expect, because so many of the folks have been dealing with these agencies in a certain way, and really required a fundamental change, both for our clients and for the agencies, to think about things in a different way. But honestly, just in the first 2 months alone, so February and March, we probably had well over 1,100 contacts, people walking in, calling us, asking us questions. We had 440 sit-down, face-to-face appointments where we sat down, heard the situation that somebody was facing, kind of assessed what the best options were for them, and then referred them to the appropriate resource in the county. So of those like 439, I think somewhere close to 200 were actually referred into housing programs, either shelter or subsidized housing or eviction prevention, as Jim was mentioning. So, yeah, so it's been successful, I think.
So when you talk about 1,100 plus contacts, has that helped to alleviate the demand of just initial service on so many of the providers so that they can actually deliver direct services?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great advantages of this program is that so many of the initial inquiry is coming into one place now. So when somebody goes to an agency, the agency can focus on the services that they provide. They don't have to redo the whole questionnaire, all the intake, because we've already done it for them. So by the time that somebody comes to a George's house or a St. Vincent de Paul, they already know it's a fit, and then that person can go straight into the program. They don't have to go through another assessment or another type of intake process. So it's definitely benefit for the agencies as well.
So how do you get a handle on, we heard Jim talk about the multiple services that you can provide to a client or a family. How do you get out how diverse a particular situation might be?
Well, you know, when somebody comes in, you know, the first thing we've tried to do is, I mean, ultimately our goal is to get as many people as possible into permanent housing. I don't think we would consider ourselves to be successful if we're just moving people from shelter to shelter to shelter. So ultimately we want to move people into a place of thriving and permanent housing. Sometimes that's not possible for some folks.
So it's permanent housing, but it's more than that.
It's absolutely more than that. It you know, when we look at as client situation, they'll be sitting in front of us. We really try to assess, there's so many different things that can be in play, as Jim mentioned. For example, somebody might have a mental health issue. And so in addition to trying to assess their housing, if they've got a mental health, you know, challenge, that can get in the way of their housing. So we have developed partnerships with Kitsap Mental Health and Peninsula Community Health Services where we can make referrals for mental health assessments and appointments and even medication if it's needed. So there's a lot of different approaches. We try to tailor it to the actual need that's in front of us.
So who are some of the partners on this?
Yeah, we've it's been quite amazing that, you know, the partners that have really stepped up. So many, all the local housing partners, anybody that provides shelter today, St. Vincent de Paul of Bremerton and North Kitsap Fish Line. We're working with the housing authorities who manage the subsidized housing Kitsap. As Jim mentioned, Kitsap Rescue Mission, Kitsap Community Resources. I mean, even though we're part of KCR, we also work very actively with Jim's programs for that. The YWCA and Coffee Oasis. So, you know, pretty much any of the agencies that are doing housing services today have agreed to be our partner. And they've actually signed agreements saying, this is what we agree to do. We agree to refer anybody who comes directly to us to the Housing Solutions Center instead of taking them in directly. And then we will do that assessment and make sure that that client gets the best resource.
So the Housing Solutions Center is really a network of partners who collaborate to offer a full suite of services to folks who need it.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay, I'm a client. How do I access this Housing Solutions Center?
Yeah.
And then what does it look like to me?
Yeah, well, ultimately it's the client experience. I mean, that's, you know, our guiding vision is how do we make this the most streamlined experience for the client. So they can either walk in. We have locations in, like I said, in North Kitsap, South Kitsap, and Bremerton or Coffee Oasis. Or they can call us. Our main number to access all of our centers is 473-2035. So they just call that and we can connect them with the center that's nearest them.
Would you say that number again?
Absolutely. It's area code 360-473-2035.
Great.
And so the individuals can just, or they can find out where the nearest location is. The one that, the central Bremerton location is at the KCR offices on 1201 Park Avenue. And so if they come in, we pretty much see folks on a walk-in basis. They can make appointments if they want. One of the biggest challenges other counties have had in implementing this type of program is there's been a sudden backlog. And so we were very careful in how we designed this, because our goal was for everyone who needed service to have a face-to-face visit within 72 hours. And I can tell you we pretty much have done that in 100% of the cases.
So I found you somehow through
Absolutely.
your phone or
Yes.
through word of mouth.
Yes.
And I've come in and you've talked to me
Yes.
about my family situation.
Yes.
And within 72 hours, we're finding some solutions.
Well, within 72 hours, we are, if you've contacted us, our commitment is to have a face-to-face appointment with you within
Okay.
72 hours. However, what we are experiencing is that on virtually every case we can see you on a walk-in basis. The longest wait might be an hour on a really, really busy day. So it's that part of it's been working well. When I meet with you, to a certain degree, it's going to be depending on what your needs are and what the resources are in the community. We've had waiting lists for shelters with as many as 35 families on it when we first started. Right now, our waiting lists are pretty much down to just a couple of different households. But that varies. It depends on the unique needs and what programs are available. So ultimately we're going to try to avoid putting somebody in shelter. We're going to try to see if they qualify for programs like the KCR Rapid Rehousing, where they can get them into an apartment or something like that. So then we'll work with landlords, or we'll be your advocate in this process to get you to connect it to the right resource.
That sounds terrific.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a little bit of positive energy about your job.
Oh, I love it. I feel like this is such a great direction for our county, and I think it's taken a lot of risk on the part of the providers to really move into a completely new direction. But everybody's been behind it. Everybody's been so supportive. Nobody's been putting up roadblocks. And as a result, it's really gone very smoothly, and the client experience has been very positive.
So what are some of the lessons learned from having begun this much more constructive collaboration across agencies? Lessons learned for service providers as well as for client case management.
Right, absolutely. Well, ultimately I think what we need to realize is that the most important way to prevent homelessness is to prevent it before it starts. So a lot of folks are hovering on that brink of not being able to make their next rent payment, or they get a 3-day pay or vacate notice. So how do we step in and help them stay in the homes that they have to avoid homelessness? We have to, I think one of the things we've learned clearly is that we need to support our current safety net of shelters, because the option for permanent housing is not immediate for some people. Some people need to go through the case management process that Jim spoke of before they can move into a more permanent shelter. We need the shelters. We have a great continuity of shelters in our community, and we need them. I think we also have to support efforts like the Housing Solutions Center that support coordinated entry. And then we always have to work on expanding programs that support self-sufficiency, I believe.
So what the self-sufficiency is, for example?
For example, any of the programs that like KCR offers, or many of the other programs offer, you're trying to move individuals from a place of being in crisis to a place of self-sufficiency. I mean, ultimately, we want to stop the cycle of homelessness. I mean, that's our ultimate goal. And so any types of programs that have case management, any of the recovery and assistance programs, addiction programs that we have with West Sound Treatment or Agape or Kitsap Recovery Center, great examples of those that help people move through crisis to a place of thriving and self-sufficiency. So that's ultimately, I think, the goal that all the agencies have.
Monica and Jim, thank you very much for being here today and talking with us about this very, very important topic. I know that many of us have felt that it was a very remote topic for a long time. And in the last few years, many of us now know people who have been touched by homelessness or the threat of homelessness. So I'm so pleased that you were able to talk with us today. The Housing Solutions Center has been a very, very innovative initiative that Kitsap County has fostered. I believe that we will probably see this model followed elsewhere in the country in coming years. But again, thank you very much for the work that you do, for being here today, and for helping us understand this issue better in Kitsap County. Again, your phone number and your website are going to be on the screen so folks can see it and contact you directly if they wish to.
Absolutely. Our phone number is 360-473-2035.
Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you for joining us today for Commissioner's Corner. I'm Commissioner Charlotte Garrido, signing off for today. Looking forward to seeing you next time.